But it got to the point where it wasn't anything for me to put down half of a bottle of something a night and then function well, the next day. Because Tammy, to your point earlier, and for the people that are going to hear this podcast, I really encourage you, you don't have self-awareness. You believe you're good.
Hi, everybody. Welcome to another episode of the Blah, Blah, Blah Something Wellness Podcast. We are going deep into alcohol addiction and recovery, and we are joined by some new faces and special guests that are going to share a little bit about their story. I am your host, Tami Sharp, joined by my partner in all things, Chris Zamora. If you want to know more about him, you can check out his profile or watch many of the other podcasts because he's done his intro a lot. So he's Chris. He's awesome. And with that, Jeff and Brian, hello and welcome. Brian,
Hello,
I'll start
hello.
with you.
Hi.
Will you introduce yourself, please?
Oh, well, I thank you very much for having me on. My name is Brian Gillespie. How are you? Thank you. Have a great day. Goodbye.
Good night.
So my name is Brian Gillespie. I'm a Marine Corps veteran. I served 1982, 1986, Camp Pendleton, California, 1st Tank Battalion, 1st Marine Division. I'm also a retired police officer for Manasquan Police Department in New Jersey. Yo, forget about it. So I've been working in the field of treatment for, I guess, a few years now. I should probably add that I've been in recovery for the last 10 years. So my sobriety date is May 17th, 2015. And it's not a program of attraction. It's a promotion. It's a program of attraction. And kind of like for being a first responder and a veteran, by talking about it more, I've had more people come out of the shadows and start talking about what's ailing them, right? I'm also 100% PTSD through the VA. And right now, I currently work for an organization called Healing Heroes, which is mental health and substance use outpatient treatment.
Awesome. This is going to be such an amazing conversation. So thank you for being here. Thank you for sharing. I'm going to fix this. I'm just going to call it out so people are like, oh, we're okay. So
I was going to say something, but I didn't want to.
I keep holding it and it keeps, it's Arizona. So we had 3 days
Right.
of clouds. So I'm like, okay, it's winter clothes, but it's still like 85 degrees. So I'm just pretending. But Jeff, welcome. Tell us about yourself.
Hi, my name is Jeff Daukas. I've been in public safety for over 25 years. I started as an adult probation officer with the county. I transitioned to a local police department where I've been ever since, working all sorts of things. It's actually where I met Chris. We were detectives a long time ago when I didn't have any gray. Those are
what I should.
I know. Yeah, that's the thing. So we had a blast doing all that kind of stuff. I worked my way. I spent 10 years as an investigator, all the way up through homicide. Did that. Promoted in 13. I was running a protester unit for our city, defensive tactics, one of our lead instructors, and then I ran a field training unit. I was a field training coordinator for 4 years. Ran an investigation team for 3 years, and then I'm back to the greatest job on the planet, which is day shift, weekends off patrol, and I love it. So that's me. I have 2 amazing children. One is going to graduate ASU, coming up here in May. He's almost 21. The other is going to graduate the Daukas Homeschool Academy, officially registered. Thanks, wife.
Oh.
And he is almost 18, and he is a sergeant in our Explorer program right now. Like Brian, my sobriety date is January 27, 2017, and I have not had a drop or an inkling since then, and it has been absolutely incredible. And some of the things we talked about, I know we're going to get into, and this is just an intro, but we talked a little bit before the recording started about, some of the times when you feel like you're moderately okay, you don't even realize that you're just crashed out, so you don't even realize the other things that are available in wellness. That was my story, so I look forward to teasing that out a little bit through the conversation.
Awesome. Thank you. And when we're off camera, I'm going to pick your brain about homeschool because I pulled my daughter and I'm homeschooling. So
no, with 16 years, my wife is going to finally finish after 16 years, and she retired as an accountant and said, I could never homeschool. So we can talk about that some other time. It is an amazing story. I'd love to tell that story to as many people as possible. So we'll have that talk.
Maybe even do it as another topic later down, because it's a whole
Oh
thing.
yeah.
So.
Well, I've spoken over the past couple of years on probably 20 different podcasts about all sorts of things, trauma recovery, like Brian, probably like law enforcement, wellness, certainly homeschooling, things like that. So anytime you want to talk about things, I'm ready to chop it up.
Awesome. Well, let's go back to the beginning of your career, because you guys just, gave your background a little bit. And what I heard from all of that is all of you were very motivated, dedicated, proud of what you were doing. And let's kind of share a little bit of let's do a little bit. Jeff and Chris. So the cool thing, oh, okay, chickens. I did this again. I gotta breathe. Okay. So I'm all excited. Chris and Jeff, do you guys have any stories that come to mind from early days since you guys worked together? And then I'm going to we'll get to the point where we found out that Brian and Chris it's all family. It's all connected in this whole thing. So, yeah, do you guys remember anything that popped up? Fun stories to kick it off with?
You're putting us in the hot seat.
Chris and I we were both defensive tactics guys. And so back in '07, as memory serves, Chris was, for his agency at the time, he was putting forth buy bus reversal training. Remember that, Chris?
Yeah.
And I had
yeah,
gone out to that school. We were doing, I would define it as close quarter intimacy with our brothers. and
yeah.
and it was, you're working undercover, if we're going to be doing these reversals and things go badly, what has to happen? And so that was the first time. And so Chris and I had a relationship through the DT world. Funny enough, we were dealing with, if I recall correctly, Chris, we had an ORT, organized retail theft kind of ring that we were working that was spanning across the valley. And so a bunch of us were connected on that, but real peripheral. The most fun I had though was being in that training out in your agency. So that's where Chris and I met. And I always remember that there was another brother out there that really understood that sometimes people need to be punched in the face for everyone's best interest. And ultimately, the long-term goal should be, hey, how do we preserve ourselves? How do we preserve our own life and protect the lives of other people? And sometimes, if violence is a communication tool, I want to be fluent. So that's Chris. I don't know if you remember. That's kind of some of the stuff that we talked about.
Yeah, and Jeff, you were big in the martial arts world and the DT world, and I think you were lifelong martial artists, so you really understood it. And I was just getting into MMA at that time, and I put this class together. I just put it together kind of just as a project kind of a thing, and then you and then Kevin from 10P PD, I think you guys
and Greg Thibodeau out in Chandler.
Yes, and you guys saw it, and you're like, hey, you should probably open this up to other people. I didn't realize that other officers could benefit from it, right? And so that got started. They got it started, and before you know it, we're teaching that. We're teaching it to all different agencies, tactical units, undercover units, making them work together. And it got pretty extensive. So yeah, because of that, because you guys saw interest in it, that is what pushed me to get it out there so that we can make other officers, other detectives safe during undercover operations, right? Because
outstanding, yes.
And you probably have experienced this. I have attended undercover training all over the country, right? Conferences, different specialized trainings. And in almost every single one, the instructor will always say, if you're buying drugs in a car, you need to learn how to fight in a car. So I'm thinking, okay, great. They're going to teach me how to fight in a car. Nobody ever did. Right. And which is why we created this training. So yeah, just hearing experienced officers talk about it and the benefits of it, that's what caused me to really push it out there. So thank you, Jeff. Thank you. And to the other guys that were in the class. So yeah. So that's how we know.
Well, and you just gave me a good cue in, because hearing experienced officers is what led you to create something. So for the audience listening, alcohol is one of the top known but not talked about problems within the law enforcement and first responder community. So it's one of the reasons that we're doing the podcast the way that we're doing it, is because you're hearing experienced law enforcement professionals that have gone through their journey and come out the other side without losing their careers. Some of the guests maybe, but right now I want to hear your guys's. Can we walk it back? So I kind of brought it to the beginning of the career a little bit. Brian, you've been quiet for a minute, so I'm going to come over to you and let you share a little bit of your backstory. Will you walk us through kind of the beginning of the career? And for both of you, was it big circumstances that led to your drinking, or was it death by 1,000 cuts that then all of a sudden you realized, oh shit?
Sure. I mean, for me, fourth generation law enforcement military in my family. Rite of passage for me, young kid. Saw my father, my mother were heavy drinkers. My family drinkers. Couldn't wait to be like that. For me, my dad retired as a police sergeant in Jersey City, and all I want to do is grow up and be like him. Wear the crew cut. Be the well-respected guy, be the funny guy that everybody laughed at and drank and get tattoos and be the badass cop. I got some of those things down. I didn't get all of them, but to me, that was what my history was going to lay ahead of me. My father was a CB in World War II in Korea, and I wanted to do something along those lines. I had a cousin who joined the Marine Corps who was like a mentor or someone I always looked up to. I said, I'm going to join the Marine Corps. And my dad said, no, you're never going to make it, because I was very small. And I went in, did my time, but jump back a little further. I was probably 13 when I did the rite of passage on the neighbor's stoop and drinking Boone's Farm from a cat. Right, and that was our cool thing. You drank the Boone's Farm, and that was what I was like, yeah. And I was sitting with my brother and his friends, and yeah, that was pretty cool. You don't have to do that again. And then the first time at 13, I was a freshman in high school at the time. I had older kids come and say, "Hey, we're going down to this guy's basement. We're going to hang out and drink. Would you want to do that?" I'm like, "Sure, yeah, that sounds cool to me." And I went and I did that, and they had nothing. I didn't have any money. They gave me gin and tonics. So I said, that sounds good. So I'll never forget, I had chicken and rice that night for dinner. And the reason I remember that is because that's everything I saw come up that night. And it was so bad, I had to stay somewhere else. They found my brother. He said, "You can't come home. That'll kill you." Very horrible evening all around. So horrible to the fact that I couldn't wait to do it again. Right? So going into the Marine Corps, everything I did was surrounded, or going into my Marine Corps and into the police department, everything was surrounded by alcohol for me. It was alcohol driven. Any organizations I belonged to was boozing before, boozing during, boozing after, doing anything that came with that, hanging out, carousing, just stupid stuff, right? So for me, once I became a police officer, now I was part of the choir boys. Now I did go to choir practice. That was the coolest thing, right? You always talked about it. We worked midnights, and at 7 o'clock, there's a bar back by us called Kelly's. And they were open at 7 o'clock, and we called it Kegs and Eggs. So you got off shift at 7, you went, you had your breakfast, and you drank. And you usually try to do it sometimes on your last shift, so you didn't have to wake up and go right to work. And you drank till 12 in the afternoon, whatever, and slept the afternoon away and did whatever. Then working the 3 to 11s was fantastic, because then you could always go out at 11. You'd try to be the guy that got off shift early so you can get to the bar earlier, go run and do whatever you had to do, or go wherever you had to go.
So then, moving through your career, what made you realize, like, hey, I have a problem and I might need to not do this?
I don't want to say I felt I had a problem. I knew there was something wrong. I had a brother who was two brothers who had gone through it. And at the time I retired, I was still drinking very actively. I retired in 2010. I was 45 years old. I was able to buy my Marine Corps time back and my dispatch time. So in New Jersey, there's no age limit. So I hit my 25 years of service in our pension system, and I ran. And I wanted to retire, but I wanted to work. And that sounds crazy. I just didn't want to do that anymore. So at 45, I left, still drinking, still doing stupid stuff. And right around the time when I was 51, I saw an ad in the paper for this gym that had just opened up. And I said to my wife, you know what, I think I want to join. I said, all right, well, why don't you join us? So I don't want to know anybody. I just want to do this thing. So I went, and this kind of ties in. It's maybe a little longer, but this kind of ties into everything to today. As I joined, and I go in my first day, and I get there nice and early, because that's what I do. And I get in so I can pick where I'm going to go. I go in, and I'm in the back right corner. For any military people out there, and just like, for any law enforcement, I get the right corner. I got my fields of fire. Ain't no one coming behind me. I got line of sight for everything. I don't want no one behind me. I want to see everything that's going on. 5 minutes before we start the class, this dude walks in, heavier set, bigger dude. Now I'm really close to the wall. And he walks in with his towel and his water, and he comes over to me. I'm like, this guy is not putting his shit down here. And sure as shit, he puts his water down and he puts his towel down. And for the first time when I really reflect on this was my first fight or flight moment that I could think of. I was like, that motherfucker. So for whatever reason, I put my hand out and I said, hey, I'm Brian. He goes, hey, my name's Rob. I said, you ever do anything like this before? He goes, nah, my wife was in a later class though. I go, I'll tell you what, bro. You help me and I'll help you. He goes, all right, sounds like a plan. So Jeff will get this part. He'll enjoy this part. So we started working out for the next 8 months, and we became best of friends. We go out to dinner 2-3 times a week with our wives. I'm going crazy doing exercises, and he'd be like, whoa, 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 easy does it. I'm like, okay, all right, I got it. So I'd be doing more, going crazy, and trying to get everything right. And he's like, hey, progress, not perfection. I'm like, dude, where do you get this shit from? This is awesome. Well, little did I know that Rob, besides being what he did for HR on his firm, he was also a substance use counselor. So, for lack of better terms, he was grooming me. Because I'd sit there in the mornings and I'd feel like crap and I'd look like crap. And he'd be like, you all right? I'm like, yeah, I'm all right. I'm all right. He's like, you need anything? I'm like, nah, I'm good. Thank you, no, bud. I'm good. And I would continue for the 8 months. I don't know if you want me to go a little further about how this whole thing started with me, but it got to a point where one weekend I was at a concert. It was on a Saturday night. He got, drunk. It was okay. Nothing crazy. A lot of things that happened in my life. And that Sunday felt like crap. My wife had picked me up from the concert, so I thought everything was good to go. Monday morning, at the time, I'd worked for Rutgers University doing working public safety. And I was working at a substance use and mental health outpatient facility, right where I needed to be. So we worked out this morning, and me and Rob used to talk every day, an hour on our way into work. And I wouldn't answer the phone when he called that morning. So I was feeling like crap. And all I could say to myself was something needs to change. Something needs to change. Because if you didn't know, we're the best negotiators in the world. We're better than any FBI negotiator. Because I'll tell you right now, I can negotiate myself into drinking. I can negotiate myself out of drinking. I can negotiate myself into the worst situation. All I could say was something needs to change. Notice what I wasn't saying. I got to stop drinking. So I walk in to our facility, and I'm first in, last out. I left Friday. I was the last one there, locked up, turned everything off. Walk in Monday morning, and I throw my book bag down, walk into the first class and throw the lights on. And on the whiteboard was written the Serenity Prayer. It wasn't there on Friday when I left. It was not there on that board when I left. From that point on, I dropped to my knees. I surrendered, started crying like a little baby. I called my wife, and she said, what's wrong? And I said, I need help. And in the most ever-loving way she could ever say, it's like, yeah, you do. And then she said, did you call Rob? I said, I'm going to call him now. So I called him. I told him the exact same story. He said, brother, I always told you I would be here for you. So that night, Rob took me to my first AA meeting. And from that point forward, I've been sober to this day. But I kind of take that a little step because from that point of Rob saying, brother, I told you I would always be here for you, I kind of took that into the first responder military and veteran world where I feel like I have to be there for others like me who fought for so long at 51 years old that I finally had to surrender because I knew what it was doing in my life and my relationships and everything alongside that. That I feel like I have to be there for them. And that I travel the country going to different conferences. I talk to many people. I try to help as many people. I got my CPRS. Maybe means nothing. I'm not a good business guy because I do everything for free by helping people. And I want to continue. I want to die doing that.
Well, and I want to jump in before, Jeff, I have you do your story. I'm going to jump in with mine a little bit because I want to echo that because I have that same kind of feeling. I myself have never been an addict to anything, but I was married to one in a different former life. And my dad was an outpost deputy sheriff, so he raised me. I was an after school special. I didn't do anything. And he was very, very smart. And I talked a little bit about this in the previous episode, but I didn't share this part, I don't think. But one of the most genius things that my dad did for me was to get me to not party and do drugs was in high school when I wanted to go to the parties. He would tell me, you can go and you're not going to get in trouble. And this is a guy that would literally threaten to send me to juvie if I didn't clean my room. I literally have Polaroids of evidence of my messy room. And so when he said I wouldn't get in trouble, I was like, oh, what's the catch? And he said, well, if I find out that you're at the party, I'm going to bust the party. All of your friends are going to go to juvie. The adults that contributed are going to go to jail, and you're going to be the school narc. Choice is yours. So I'm very thankful that he did that because I did not go to the parties and I avoided that whole peer pressure part of my youth. I feel bad now looking back in hindsight. Most of the kids I went to school with have been or are still dealing with some sort of addiction, and some are in recovery. Fast forward, I'm married, and all of a sudden my husband is a raging addict and lying to me about everything. And you guys can see this picture back here. I used to own a bar on Maui. So I served alcohol to alcoholics. And I was living with an addict who was lying to me about everything. My life was not fun at the moment. I was learning how to check pupil dilation. Our door locked on its own. The foil was for soldering. It was just bad. It was a very, very, I was never physically abused, but mentally and emotionally just wrecked. And I had to make a decision. He was addicted at that point. He got addicted to meth and was doing oxys as well. So I ended up getting him into a methadone clinic, learned firsthand about methadone clinics, and that's rough. Long story short, I ended up kicking him off the island, basically. I sent him back we lived on Maui. I sent him back to Washington to go with his parents to go get help because I was killing myself trying to help somebody. And one of the biggest pieces of advice I have, if you are someone that's in a relationship with somebody that is an addict, you cannot help somebody or save somebody that doesn't want to help themselves. Some people are not there yet. Others, they might need a little bit of tough love and they want to get there and you can stay, but you really got to balance your own self-preservation in dealing with addiction and recovery because it is not a fun road. I share all of that because I want to echo I couldn't do anything to help him, but I learned enough and experienced enough. I damn sure can be able to help some other people that are willing to get that help. So that's where I say. So that's where part of my purpose piece in this as well.
Well, you bring up a good point because Brian, you said that religious prayer that was on the board wasn't there on Friday, but it was there when you got there Monday morning. What about that kind of opened your eyes to you need to change? Like how did you recognize that? What went through your mind?
So dealing with what I had dealt with my brother at the time, and what I'd seen and throughout my time as a child, throughout my time in the Marine Corps, my time as a police officer, I knew the Serenity Prayer. And my brother taught me it when he was trying to get sober years and years ago. From I was a person, I went to Catholic school, but I hated the Catholic Church. I hated the Catholic religion. But there someone there that I believed in something. Right? I didn't know what it was. I really didn't know what that was. I didn't know really much about faith. I knew what they beat into us in grammar school and high school, but I just wasn't sure. I felt something was there. I wasn't an atheist, but I wasn't sure what that was until later in my life. So by me seeing that, I was a science person before that. So whenever something would happen to me or someone would say something like, "Oh my God, you just said the number 123. That's my favorite number. I got to play the number now." But if somebody said something or you saw something, I believe that was a sign. I don't know if it was a sign from God or not, because I really didn't kind of maybe believe in him, but I believe that there was a sign. There was something that I didn't know what was until I found out many years later. That was my higher power. And for me, my higher power turned into faith for me. So that day, seeing that sign was my higher power telling me it's time. And for whatever reason, I didn't fight it this time. I didn't come up with an excuse. I just knew that it was time. And I felt years before at some point that this was probably going to be my life, that I was going to have to stop. And everything that morning just left me. And I want to say one of the main reasons probably was my faith that I didn't realize I had was in this guy, Rob, who is still my best friend to this day, because I knew I can go to him and I knew that he could help me.
Just recognizing that, because we're the biggest, when it comes to law enforcement and firefighters, first responders, we're the best problem solvers on the planet. You can put us in the room together and we'll solve all the problems of the world if we need to. We might knock down a few walls in the process, but that's what we do. We solve problems. The problem with us, though, is that we don't recognize that we have a problem. So we could operate for years in this phase, if you will. So the fact that you recognized it just by reading that prayer, you recognize I got a problem and now I'm going to fix it. And you did.
I talk about it all the time, Chris. Like, we're the helpers, we're not the helpees. I'm good. Take care of that guy first. I'm good to go. Don't worry about me.
Yeah. And after, Jeff, I want you to share your story. And I do want to come back around as we go in deeper into this conversation about faith, religion, AA specifically, because a lot of people, nope, I'm not going to go AA because I don't believe whatever. So I do want to come back to the spiritual disconnect and unpack that a little bit later down the road. Just plant the seed and made a note for myself. So on that note, Jeff, will you share a little bit of your journey?
Yeah. So I'm the oldest of four boys. Dad's Irish, mom's Italian. So growing up, alcohol was a normal part. I grew up in Chicago and then Pennsylvania and then Arizona, but it was a normal part of everything. There was tons of pasta, tons of talking with your hands. You want to get me to shut up? As a detective, I would just sit on my hands and just kind of do one of these things. But I remember we were all athletes. So it was me and like 14 months later, twins, and 5 years later, another boy. And Sunday mornings, my dad would get us up and we would watch football together. Now, we went through, I remember going to Catholic, like Brian. I remember growing up Catholic because mom ran everything. Dad never went. Mom had us in our little shirt and ties, and we had to go to mass. And that lasted till about, I don't know, like 12 until we got confirmed. And after CCD in the classes, you get confirmed. They're like, hey, you're totally good to go. So we never went again because it was never anything that was serious to us. And it got in the way of what my dad wanted to do, which was football. So we played every sport you can imagine, but we woke up, my dad would wake up, and he was working 60-hour weeks, 6 days a week, nonstop, and still like coach all our sport teams. He was an amazing man. He just passed on June 13, 2023. And so we've just been kind of moving through those things, just 2.5 years past that. Amazing man, wonderful man. But to his credit, that's where the alcohol started for me, because he would have these parties over and there was always passport scotch in Old Milwaukee, like everywhere, all the time. And Brian's smiling because, because I'm 51 now. And so you look at that lifestyle growing up, he would have Friday nights with the boys, they'd come over and I remember at 15, I was their bartender. And they let me sit in Hold'em games, and I got so good at Hold'em alcohol and playing Texas Hold'em that they wouldn't let me sit down anymore because I'd take all their money and leave them just trash. And my mom was like, well, as long as you're with your dad, you're fine. And it wasn't like I wasn't getting power drunk, but every time I make, you talk about the Boone's Hill, the Boone's Farm, the Strawberry Hill, like I remember all that stuff where we'd make drinks and I'd take a sip. But we were also hardcore out. Like I was swimming all the time and playing basketball. And so my metabolism as a teenager was so kicked out of shape that I could hold it, and I'd get massively drunk, not massively, but within that first 30 minutes, but then I would just be fine. And then it was kind of just, no one said anything. I carried that into college, was in a fraternity, and I was the rush chair. Because I figured, at the time when I had hair, it was blonde. I was the old Zach Morris, Saved by the Bell, and figured every girl wanted to be with me, every guy wanted to be like me, and that's what it was going to be. And I, like Chris, you said, with the martial arts and stuff, just doing combatives, being the Italian and the Irish together. If you ever seen that Jim Brewer comedy sketch, everybody's fighting together in your stomach. That was me, though. I would take it out literally, and I would fight everybody all the time. So I just use violence as a way to gain rep status, and it became something that I connected with alcohol. because you know how it is. You get everybody, you get your alcohol in you, and you can take down Goliath. It doesn't even matter. So you move into where I'm 22. I meet my sweet girl, ask her to marry me. She's 21, and we got married. So at 22, I'm married. I get into adult probation. I do that whole thing. Everybody's drinking, doing that. It was like more the same. 2005. So we're moving a bit here. My first kid's born January 2005, and I remember we were in our first home, and we were in the middle of some, I'll call it intense fellowship moments. My wife and I, with a new baby. I was a field training officer at the time, and I remember drinking. I can tell you all about the day. I can't tell you what day of the month it was, but it was in April 2005. We had this massive fight. I took my Corona Light because I didn't want the calories, because that'll kill you. And I go to my kids' room because I just didn't want to fight with my wife anymore. And I'm just watching. You guys ever be seeing like little babies and little baby burritos, right? The little hospital blankets you wrap them up in, and they're breathing. They're just like breathing 100 miles an hour. And I'm just watching this kid. And I told this story to Kyle Reyes. He interviewed me for this exact thing. And I was telling him, I remember like I was experienced with God, but that was good for other people. But I remember saying to God this: I'm not the man I want to be. I'm not the husband I want to be. I'm not the brother. I'm not the father. And I looked at my son and I said, this little boy is going to grow up hating the man that his father is today. And right there, I gave my life to Jesus Christ. And I have been on a different journey ever since then. Now, that didn't stop me drinking. And so this is interesting. So I go through my career. I go property, fraud, forgery, violent crimes, homicide. And it was more the same. I think, Brian, I heard you say some of the guys at choir practice. I was good enough on patrol and good enough as a detective that I would get all my work done. I was really sharp in that role. And so we would just kick out a couple hours early. The boss was like, as long as your work's done, I don't care. And we were drinking all the time. Like I would probably drink 5 nights a week significantly. Not really at the bars at this point, but just at home. But it got to the point where it wasn't anything for me to put down half of a bottle of something a night and then function well, the next day. Because Tami, to your point earlier, and for the people that are going to hear this podcast, I really encourage you, you don't have self-awareness. You believe you're good to go. And so I was doing things to overcompensate. Like I would work out a ton and I would overcompensate in the physical role. And I was getting my master's degree, and I got a master's in 19, like the mental. And then I want to be like spiritual. And then I want to be this guy. But ultimately the problems didn't lie with the symptoms. It lay within me. And so you fast forward after all these things, I was I had a couple of friends, Tony Holly, he was one of the guys. I was literally on the phone with him the night before he was killed, line of duty. I got another guy in 2011, Brad Jones. I got him hired, and a year and a half later, I was on homicide, investigated his murder. And you just start seeing the complete degradation of the world, thinking, this is it. So what does it matter if I'm drinking? What does it matter? And ultimately, I remember on January 27, 2017, I'm making another Fireball and apple juice, probably like pints of these things all the time. And my then 12-year-old, same kid from '05, he looks at me and he goes, Dad, is that bad for you? And my sweet girl and I had always promised that, we just wouldn't lie. Maybe there's some gifts you give your kids when they're older and they can deal with it. But I looked at him and I go, yeah, probably not great. And he looked at me with this kid innocence, which you guys can all relate. And he said, Dad, why do you do it then? And it hit me that like what he had said to me, I wasn't living out from I was serving as a deacon in my Christian church. And I said, this is how much alcohol means to me. And I dumped it out and I went and pulled Brian, you'll get this, the other 6 bottles I had hidden around the house and in my gun safe. And I dumped them all down the drain while my wife, Tami, had that look on her face and she has tears coming down her eyes. So this was like a 20-minute adventure of me getting stuff and dumping. And I had to look at her and go, let me get some lemons here. We got to get that in the drain because this does not smell good. And so that was it. And I didn't, the Lord took the problem of me wanting to just claw my face off. But here's the other problem. As you guys would teach, and as I've seen in podcasts, you're talking about if you have substitutionary addiction. So you have something that moves out of the way. Well, there's a void that something else is going to fill it. It's like we look on the street. There's a power vacuum, something else is going to fill it. Take away the alcohol. So my substitutionary addiction became violence. And really only until about end of the 2020 dumpster fire year when I was doing the protester stuff, and we were fighting all the time because I had realized that as long as I was drinking and as long as I was fighting people, here's the lies that I kept selling to myself. All the cops will respect me and all the bad guys will fear me. And the opposite was true. The bad guys were lining up because there's no shortage of them, right? And the good guys, my buddies, were coming in and going, "You're kind of an a-hole. People don't respect you. They just think you're a clown with how you act." And that was hard. But to be reflective and go, okay, people are coming to me for advice. They've come to me for all other areas of their career, except for what it meant to be like a man of character in this way. And so I really had to get serious, and the Lord had to do some work on me to where that was not an issue anymore, where I look at people as people and they don't have to be targets. And guess what? I don't have to be any more than what God claimed me to be, which is his son. And so for me, that's just gold. Like I don't have to have the alcohol. And like I said, my dad drank for 43 years, smoked for 43 years. And when he stopped, he looked at me, and I remember this is probably my 20s or some 30s maybe. And he said, someday this is going to catch up to me. And he died of lung cancer. And so you look at that, and we all know. And so for your listeners, guys and gals that are listening to me now, if you're young in your career, like I said, I remember, Brian, do you remember being 20 last week? Because I do. And I remember being this, and I look back and I think I had it all figured out. Don't need to tell me anything. But what I didn't have is a strong mentor. I didn't have somebody that was willing to talk truth to me. Chris, you had mentioned, oh, we'll chop it up. We'll say all kinds of things. We'll hide. We'll make excuses. But the guys that will pull you aside and say, like Rob did for Brian. So I love that story. And say, you know what, you're screwing up. And so I remember making we'll just call it a professional visit to a guy on a mandatory check-in program. We'll just leave it at that. And I walk in, and this dude just got out of the joint. He was benching 450. And funny enough, Brian, his name's Rob. And he went in the joint. He was Big Rob, and he was an enforcer for HA when he was in there, did 6 years. And I walk in, and here I am, like, I'm going to get crushed. I'm a sergeant. I'm going to get crushed by this big dude. He's making breakfast for dinner. He said, "Hey, Sarge, you want some breakfast?" First contact with this dude, who I know is a bad dude, but he was treating me like a person. And I'm like, "Yeah, man." And we talked, and he laughed at one point, guys, and he says to me, he's telling me his stories. He's living in not a great area. He's like, "Yeah, but I can tell you wouldn't understand that." He's talking about alcohol. And I go, "Dude, I'm a recovering alcoholic." He goes, "What do you mean?" I kind of tell him a little bit of the story. And I say, "I'm recovering because at any point, if I'm not on my game, I understand that I could certainly go back to that. It's just not a place I want to be." And I told him, I said, "The man you are today doesn't have to be the man you are tomorrow." And he looked at me. You guys, have you had that? Where people look at you and they actually hear you. Fast forward 2.5 years. I was the second person to hold his new baby. I was sharing my faith with him. He accepted Christ. I baptized him. I have a picture of him. He showed up in dress clothes to our church, not knowing you would not have to get into the pool in dress clothes. And he's like, "Well, I don't got anything else." Literally, dude stole my towel and all our clothes and just kept them. And my kids call him Uncle. He's been to our house numerous times. Completely changed his life. And he leads other men through alcohol recovery and faith. And, I would say to all your listeners out there, it doesn't matter if you're calling success money, or if you're calling success a title in front of your name or letters behind your name, you are missing out, because success is rooted in people. Because when you see people the way the Lord has made them, then you see people as having inherent value. And so you do, Tami, what you were saying, you were serving. You were just serving people. You were serving alcoholics. You were serving your ex, and finally you're kicking people out. And Brian, you're just giving your life to serve. Chris, you're giving your life to serve. And we serve to the point, though, where, Chris, you had said it, we don't have anything left. And Brian, you said, we're the helpers, not the helpees. And you can't give from a place where you don't have anything left to give. And finally, my sweet wife, in the midst of leading 5 men's groups, I was teaching in the college and finishing my master's, running the FTO program on swings and supporting the homeschool stuff. My wife said, I remember I had these little earphones and I'm typing a paper, and she goes, "Hey, we need to talk." And for this, so Tami, I'm going to have you step aside in the conversation for a second. For us guys, when our wives say, "Honey, we need to talk," it's not because she wants to talk about what color paint we're going to paint the room, So, and she says, and straight face, and this is not my girl, She's amazing, very emotionally sensitive. And so she said, I want to let you know, you're losing your boys and you're losing me because you're giving everything to everyone else. And I literally thought, now the alcohol's gone, but the substitutionary addiction was service others and busy. And, if it's going to be, it's because of me. And you have a question, you call me 2 a.m., I'll be there for you. And I stopped and she walked upstairs and I'm left with myself. Scary. I called all my buddies and I said, I can't do this anymore. And all of them, see if you guys can relate, all of them said, Jeff, you're this whole universe under yourself. Like, we didn't know how to tell you exactly what she said. She's right. We didn't know how to tell you that you need to stop. And that probably was in like 2021-ish, 2020. Everything has been different since. And it has been a wonderful full circle now to look back and go, man, I wish I could have punched my younger self in the face and said, you don't want this. But I don't ever, and maybe you guys can relate, and I know your listeners can. And if they can't, you guys, whoever's listening needs to hear this. I don't believe in a concept of regret, because where you are now is a byproduct of where God has taken you through your journey, whatever it is, whatever higher power you want to call it. You're here today. And if you're here today, you have a chance, as Jocko would say, to fight for tomorrow. And you can blame everything, or you can say, that was something that I don't want to have in my life anymore, like alcohol. And I want to push my recovery. I don't want to be addicted to success or work. Like, we wear costumes at work, 25 and a half years. It's a costume. I love it. And I believe in the badge and I will die for it. But I also die for my family and my faith. And like, these are the people we need to be, that our society needs to see. So I could go off. I'm going to start. I serve as an elder in my church and I'm a pastor as well. So I can just start preaching. I'm just going to stop and let you guys jump in. I end up talking a lot. I'm sorry about that. But
No,
there you go.
It's all good. And there's so much. You hit so many really profound things that I could just go chickens and squirrels, because I could go back to all the different things. But I do want to say, because we talked about being, being of service and trying to help others. So I learned the hard way in my youth that I would always say, I didn't know exactly what my path was. I just knew I had a path, and I've always wanted to be of service and help other people, but I was not clear what that was. And so I always put it up to universe, whatever your God of understanding is, and was like, I just want to help people. And that's what I'd say all the time. I just want to help people. And I did. I helped somebody steal it was after my divorce, but I went in to go pawn my wedding ring because I needed some money. It was gone. Somebody had stolen it. I helped multiple roommates at the time get a couple months rent free. I had 3 different situations where a roommate left without saying anything, and it was my name on the lease, and I went and didn't hear from them. It's the 1st of the month, the 5th of the month. Haven't seen them for a couple days. Open the room, they're gone, and now I have 24 hours to figure out how to cover their rent. I helped a crazy chick beat the shit out of me. I helped lots of people do things, steal from me, lie to me, hurt me. I helped them do that because I was not clear with my boundaries. And like you said, you can't give from an empty cup. You can't give from these places when you're trying. You can't martyr yourself, basically. And so getting clear on how you want to serve, how do you want to help people? What does that look like? And then having boundaries so that you don't take it from yourself. There are so many different parts of that too that I wanted to touch on. Chris, did you have anything that you wanted to jump in?
I think, Jeff, you bring up a good point. As a first responder, we want to help people, right? That's what we do, and we will give everything to our career. And this is something that I teach about, and I call it overinvestment. What is the difference between being overinvested versus being dedicated, right? Because this is oftentimes, especially young officers, we confuse the two at the beginning of our career. We love what we do. We're proud of what we do. We want to help everybody. This is why we became cops. However, in the process, we start to ignore our family's needs. However, in the process, we start to ignore our own personal needs, right? And then eventually we become, we burn out in this career. So what's the difference between overinvestment and being dedicated? Well, when you are dedicated, you're dedicated to yourself, dedicated to your family, you're dedicated to your career. And I always put it in that order. When you're dedicated to yourself, to your family, to your career, right? When you are overinvested, you're solely dedicated to your career. and you're going to ignore your family and you're going to ignore your own personal needs, which is why we go into this self-destructive behavior. And drinking alcohol, it can be considered self-destructive, right? Because you might get a DUI, or you might go home and get into a DV with your significant other. Because working internal affairs, these are cases that I looked at in my time. And what was it? What did it revolve around? Alcohol use, right? And
Hmm.
now I'm not making any excuses for anybody, right? But there's a tendency of getting involved in this, not realizing it's self-destructive behavior. And by the way, self-destructive behavior doesn't necessarily have to be, you know, addiction. Self-destructive behavior could also be being over invested. I'm only going to focus on my career and forget everything else. That's self-destructive behavior, right? And this is something that we need to talk about, and so that other officers recognize that, especially the younger generation.
Hey, can I add something, Brian? Can I jump in before you say something?
Absolutely.
So you talked about being dedicated to self, and I do want to point out something that was brought up maybe a little we're early, maybe we didn't touch about it. Part of my recovery was recognizing that I actually, I mean, I was always that guy who talk a big game, but realizing I actually did have worth, and I had to figure out what that was. And so sitting as the senior sergeant in an AOT, annual officer training module, and this blonde perky girl is standing up front. And there's all these health supplements and health food things. And she's up there like, hey, she had a tattoo. I played catcher in college and I was this and that. And I'm back like, I don't know who this baby kicks thinks she is, but she's not talking to me and my team because we're like the senior dudes. And you don't need to tell me about nutrition. I'm fine with my couple Pop-Tarts and 2 Red Bulls to start my day. Don't you worry about it. And I kept throwing jabs at her the whole time, like just throwing little things like, yeah, whatever. Fine. I raised my hand. She looks at me. She goes, absolutely not. You're not permitted to talk the rest of the day. And everybody lost it because people just, I mean, I was president of the union at one point. I wrote like people didn't come up to me that way. They'd never fronted me like that. And I was just kind of like, and so I'm sitting there the rest of the class, and her name's Kim Cairns, Cairns. And Kim, she taught the whole class, and the really crappy part about the class was that it was really good. Like I learned a whole bunch, but I didn't want to admit that in front of everybody that I was like really sold out on what she was saying, and that I probably was going to crash out and stroke out the next day. So I chased her down afterwards in the parking lot. And the way to tell the story, like, she'll tell her side of it, pretty funny. She thinks I'm coming to like let her have it. And then she's like, okay, well, here we go. And I went to her and I said, I'm very sorry for how arrogant I was. And I was 100% wrong. And could you please help me? I don't want to die. And if I do die, I get it, but I don't want to die because I was too stupid and arrogant not to listen to someone like yourself. And she laughed and she said, yeah, let's talk. So that was a long, long time ago. Since then, when we got to visit 100 Club stuff, guys, that you saw the story, like crazy shift. I'll just leave it at that. But investing, Chris, to your point, being dedicated to myself, then let me be dedicated even more so. What I could give to my family and not be so spent that I was messing with my sleep patterns or messing with my mental health. No one talks about mental health stuff, but when my Ethan was 5, he's my oldest. He was 6 months old. I go to a 6-month-old drowning, and they hand me a 6-month-old dead baby and go save him. And I'm like, fortunately, fire's behind me. They take the kid, they run with the kid. I told my boss, I'm like, I got to go home. So I go home, and you don't wake a sleeping baby until I come running in. My wife's like, what are you doing? And I grab him and I hug him and kiss him, wake him up, and I hand this screaming kid back to my wife. And I went back to work. That's overinvestment. And that's I look at that and I go, man, no one ever talked about. I told myself, like, well, I got to go. I'm an FTO. I have to go. I should have stayed home with my family, man. And recognizing, dedicated myself, dedicated to my family. Now I can be the kind of guy who, when I leave at 3, good luck finding me. I got my personal phone, and if your name's in it and I don't want to answer it, I don't. I'm not on call anymore. And it's wonderful. And I wonder if you guys can relate, Brian, if you can relate even to those. Can you guys relate to that stuff?
Well, yeah, Brian, yes. And that's literally what Chris created, duty-driven deterioration training that he teaches because of exactly those kinds of things. Brian, what were you going to say?
Yeah, the boundaries took a while for me because of that. And where if someone didn't, for me, if someone didn't get sober, I was helping. I took that personally, and I took it like, oh my God, I didn't help them. And until I was in a meeting, I probably had 3 years. I had 3 years in. I had two guys I was helping, and I had made mention that um, I had so many great people in from day one. And I made mention that, if my sponsees drink, I didn't help them, or whatever I said. Of course, all the weight was on me. It was all about me. And at the end of the meeting, she goes, "Got a second?" I'm like, "Yeah, sure." And I liked what she said. In meetings. I respected her, and she goes, "It's not your job to keep them sober." So what? She goes, "If they're going to drink, they're going to drink." She goes, "You have to make sure that you stay sober." And no one else had said that to me except for her, and I'll never forget that. And a lot of my boundaries from that point on. So I ran everything through Rob, and I would talk about the different things that came to me, but yet. In our program, they teach you you're not supposed to say no. So how the hell am I supposed to have fucking boundaries if I'm not supposed to say no? Right? Well, I finally got to the point where I'd say yes to a lot of different things, and then I would say no to certain things if I was still uncomfortable about it or whatever. But now I've found that I have to find that balance, and it's difficult. Even with the 10 years, I have to find that balance. I found it a little more. I had my 10 years, but I mean, this is going to go off here a second, that um, I had to deal with my mental health aspect. And I'm glad you brought that up, Jeff. I wound up going to Boulder Crest Foundation Warrior Path last July, because I had my serenity and my sobriety was under control. My mental health was off the fucking charts because I hadn't talked about a lot of stuff that had happened to me. And when I did that, everything kind of molded together. But I was also able to say, you know what? I'm here to help you, but I need you to do a little work too, because I was trying to wear their sobriety when they didn't give a shit about it. So the boundaries and that whole thing that you just talked about, Jeff, were spot on.
Well, and I wanted to say a couple things too, where Jeff, you had said this earlier, where it's amazing when somebody actually hears you, when somebody listens to what you're saying and actually gets it. I want to talk about that a little bit because, yeah, every once in a while you're like, holy shit, it worked. Because most of the time you're just kind of talking to a wall and you're just hoping that maybe something will stick. That's what we're doing with the podcast. I don't know. Here's the thing. I don't pay to play. There's a lot of people, we kind of talked about this too. There's a lot of people out there that are chasing money, trying to make a big name for themselves. They're all about followers and everything. We're about doing a damn good job for the people, the 80-20 rule. I'm not chasing the 80%. I'm talking to the 20% that actually care, that are listening, that have made it this far into the podcast. I'm talking to you. Thank you for whoever it is that's still listening, because they are the ones that actually hear it. And Jeff, to your point, so Kim, I'm friends with Kim. I'm literally drinking electrolyte water because of her. Thank you, Kim. Shout out. I'll put her contact information in the comments too. But before you can get them to hear you, the ones that need it the most, that's again one of the reasons we named this podcast the blah 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 something wellness podcast, because we are all in the wellness space. We've all been through our journeys, we've had our pain, we've gone through the darkness, and we came out the other side. But those that need it the most, that haven't figured that out, they're going to listen to this and be like, blah, blah, blah. I don't know. It was something about wellness, addiction. I don't know. I'm fine. The magical cop words. I'm fine. Bullshit. You guys have the hardest job on the planet. You're not fine. You're not. Unless you have outlets and resources and things to help you be fine, you can be fine. But just sitting there sucking it up and not talking about it, it's going to show up in all sorts of different whack-a-mole type issues, whether it's addiction, self-sabotage. We talked about the self-sabotage. How many good cops, functional alcoholics, like you guys said, you could nail it. You were doing all sorts of stuff and still drinking. How many have lost their careers or their freedom because they showed up to work drunk? Not because they were drinking in the morning, but because it was still on them from the night before. Stupid shit that gets good cops out. Okay. The other thing I wanted to talk about, so the listening. You might get some, for all of the people that are in the space, anybody that's in the space should already know this, but you probably are going to get met with defensiveness. You're going to find the assholes in the crowd, but the assholes in the audience are usually the ones, just like Jeff, who need it the most. So people like Kim and Chris and I, we know to push through that. Like, these people are hurting. I ended up writing my entire doctoral dissertation because of a bad comment. And I'm sitting there like, that person that left the comment motivated me to write an entire 10,000 word paper. And I'm going to follow up with them eventually when the time's right, because I know that they need what they had, even though it came at me negative. I also had a friend a long time ago. It was really funny hearing what you say. So many, many moons ago, this person was just miserable in all aspects of life. And we were on the phone and I was like, you can just choose to be happy. You don't have to be miserable. You could just choose to be happy through all of the stuff that you just told me. You could just choose to be happy. Can't just choose to be happy. It's not that easy. Hung up on me. Click. I'm like, all right, I'm going to choose to be happy and not let that affect me. So I moved on with my day. Next day, I get a phone call. Hello? Okay, so let me get this straight. I could just choose to be happy. And fast forward, it's been like 15 years since that whole thing. I've worked with this person off and on through the years. They were very much addict, alcoholic, asshole, in and out of jail, screwed up their life so bad. And I can proudly say that they have also been clean and sober for many years now and doing well. But man, stubborn people will give you a run for the money. So just keep loving them. We're kind of rounding around to time. So there was a couple other points I wanted to hit on too. We were talking about the Boone's Farm, and I think we all laugh because it's just like, oh, memories. Like, for me, it was Fuzzy Navel. And then we had Mad Dog 2020, which I do not recommend. That stuff was gross. But one of the things, and I kind of mentioned this in the previous episode, so Chris and I are clinical hypnotherapists. So we work with the subconscious mind. And one of the types of clients that we get are people that want to quit smoking. And it's the same for drinking and all of these vices that we have. There is the physical addiction, the chemical, all of the habit component, the emotional, everything. But there's also a piece that stems all the way back to the childhood of those first times. The first time you ever picked up a cigarette, the first time you ever had a drink. You guys shared about what that emotional connection was to the first time you guys had a drink. So as you go through life, when you're doing, you said, the behavior is toxic, it's not good for you, but you keep doing it and you don't really know why you keep doing it. It's because there is a benefit. There is always a benefit, no matter how toxic the behavior, there is something that you're getting out of it. Otherwise you wouldn't do it. And a lot of that goes back to whatever the feelings were, whether it was being accepted, being part of the family, rebelling, thinking you're cool, all of these different facets that go around in that impressionable time stick with you. So as you also said, Jeff, you can't just let something go, because then you're just a vacuum to the universe sucking up all sorts of stuff. That's why a lot of people, people that are in these toxic vibes, they keep bringing all of these different bad situations. Like, how did you attract that and that? And like, are you just bad luck? Like, why? It's because when you detach from something, if you don't replace it with something positive or healthy, you're going to just do anything that's going to make you feel good and make sense for the moment. So you've got to find healthy channels and outlets. And so I think we all echo, especially with addiction and alcoholism, you don't have it on your own. You do need to help. The mind can make up all sorts of justifications and stories to get you to, oh, well, it was a shitty day. Or like you said, Brian used it. What's the point? Like, you get to a point where you lose people, you do all of this stuff. What's the point? And then you have a drink. So you do need to have those support systems. With all of that said, I want to talk about culturally competent support systems for first responders, because one of the biggest reasons of not going to AA is, yes, there might be the religious pushback, because honestly, you guys kind of mentioned this as well, if you're in a depressed state, you're probably having some sort of disconnect from God. Whatever your God or belief is, your higher self, your higher power, universe, source, I don't care what you call it, but there's a spiritual disconnect. And with your guys' job that you have, there's justified reason to be questioning. So you might have a issue with God at the moment and you don't want to go to AA because it's not resonating. There are other spiritual programs. The other issue that first responders, especially patrol, does not want to go to an AA meeting, just a regular AA, because the odds are you're going to be sitting across from somebody that you just arrested a couple weeks ago. So why would you do that? So with that little tangent, I would like you guys to share culturally competent, what you have found. I know you mentioned Boulder Crest. What are some resources, or get rid of the excuses for the officers that are listening or the people that are listening to get resources?
If you don't mind, I want to jump in real quick. I have to backtrack on your fine statement. And if you noticed, I was smiling pretty well there. When I had a few months of sobriety, I also play in a bagpipe band. I haven't played in a while, but I'm a drummer, so I beat it. I don't blow it. Just so you know. Do you want to clarify? And we were done playing, and a guy comes up to me and he says, he's drinking. He goes, "Man, you're still not drinking?" I said, "Nope." And he's like, sips his beer and goes, "Sucks to be you," and walks away. I was so pissed off, right? So now I'm pissed. I'll show the world. I sat there, wouldn't go to the bathroom, wouldn't get up to get food. Wife had to bring me food. Now I'm stewing, making everybody else, taking my hostages. So finally, Rob walks up and he goes, "You all right?" I go, "I'm fine." He goes, "You're fine, huh?" I go, "Yep." He goes, "Do you know what fine means?" I go, "No." He's like, "Fucked up, insecure, neurotic, and emotional." I go, "Then I'm very fine." So to this day, I don't say I'm fine. I say, "Yeah, I'm good, thank you." Or, God forbid, I tell the truth. "Hey, you know what? I'm not doing good right now. Hey, what's going on?" Right? So now, to take that into what you were talking about, for me, my first 11 months, I went to Bottles and Badges meetings. I didn't go to regular AA meetings because I wasn't like them. I'm not like them. I'm a cop. I'm a Marine. I'm fucked in the head. Drink too much. I'm not like them. So I went every Monday to a Bottles and Badges meeting. I drove 35 minutes out of my way because I didn't want to be around my town, and fell in love with the place, fell in love with the people there because they understood me. Okay. I had a good friend take me there because I saw him. I had 3 weeks, and I ran into this guy and another guy in a pipe band. He goes, "Hey, I want you to come to this Bottles and Badges meeting." I said, "All right." And it was only paid police, paid fire. I said, "Super." So I went that Monday night, 11 months, good to go. Now, hit my 11th month, and I had another guy I was working out with says, "Hey, I got a great meeting I'd like you to try." I'm like, "Sure." He goes, "It's a men's meeting." I go, "All right, good to go." He's like, I said, "When is it?" He goes, "Sunday mornings." I said, "All right, 7:30. I said, good to go." So where's it at? He goes, "It's in Manasquan." And that's the town I retired as police officer. I said, "Over my dead fucking body." He goes, "Would you give it a shot?" I go, "No, I'm not. Not happening." He's like, "Come on." I'm like, "No, I only know way too many people. I am not going into a meeting in that town." I lived in the next town, but Manasquan was where I retired from. So I talked to Rob and I said, I'm not doing it. I'm not going." So the next week comes by. I'm like, So I do what any good-natured Irish drunk Marine cop would do. I drove through the parking lot when the meeting was going on to see if I could recognize any cars. So I called Rob on the way back. Said, "Yeah, I think I'll go next week to that meeting." He's like, "Really? What changed your mind?" I go, "Well, I drove through the parking lot, when the meeting was going on. I didn't recognize any cars." He goes, "Whoa, whoa, whoa. You did what?" I said, "Yeah, I drove to the car, see if I recognize any cars." He goes, "That's not normal." I goes, "Well, for me it is." He goes, "Did you ever think that they're just trying to get recovery like you?" I go, No, I didn't, because I was worried about me." He goes, "Well, that's what they're there for." I'm like, "Oh, all right." So I went to the meeting. Guy picked me up. I met him. Walk up and he says, "See, I told you I'm going to know somebody." "Well, you know that guy there?" I go, "Yep." He goes, "He's a good guy." I said, "Yeah, well, my parents used to drink with his parents, and my son is in the same grade as his daughter." Walk up, "Hey, what's going on?" "Hey, Brian, how are you?" He's, how much time you got?" I got 11 months, man. I'm a hot shit." He's like, "Well, come on in. We have a seat for you." I walk in, and there's two people in the meeting. There's a lot of people, but there's two people that I recognize. One I arrested, and one I was involved in his arrest. And they welcomed me with open arms. And it fucked me up because I was loaded for bear. And from that point on, I haven't left that meeting. I go every Saturday when I'm around, when I'm home, because I travel a lot. And it changed my trajectory and my sobriety. As far as the cultural competence is concerned, I've worked with nothing but first responder programs. I only send guys to first responder programs, whether you're fire, police, EMS, corrections, military, or a veteran, because I believe in those programs, because I believe that they have the direction for those people because they understand it. There's nothing against any other program. So what I do is I have there's first responder meetings throughout the country that I connect people to, online, some in person. Programs that I work with now, my outpatient is strictly first responders. I help friends who are civilians or the Gen Pop, whatever you want to call it. I help them get into other programs as well. But for me, it has to be a first responder program. Like Boulder Crest to me is number one for post-traumatic growth. We haven't even talked about that yet, but that's just amazing. There's so many other ones. I'm not even going to say names of programs, because if I say one, the other one's going to get pissed. But there are certain ones throughout the country that are phenomenal that I would send to than a regular program for a first responder, because the things that we talk about in those groups is when I was vulnerable. I let myself be vulnerable when I was with those Bottles and Badges meetings, right? Because I knew that they would understand me, and if I cursed, if I said I wanted to throat punch somebody, they got it, and they weren't like, oh my God, they understood where I was coming from. And then they would talk about it and said, that's not right. I'm like, yeah, all right. But if someone else in a regular meeting told me that, I'd tell you, go fuck yourself. So, but that was my journey. And I'm not saying that's for everyone, but the people I see, and maybe Jeff will say the same, it took me 51 years kicking, screaming, fighting to get to where I needed to be. And when I finally got there and I let my guard down, I let it down a little. I'm letting it down a lot. But then I wound up letting it down a lot because I got comfortable, because I trusted someone. Once I did that, I trusted someone who knew a little bit more about me. And now I feel like I can be that person, and I can introduce those people who are skeptical about the God, about the sobriety, about going into a meeting and recognizing someone. Well, so let's not go to a meeting there. Let's go somewhere else. And then once they have that, the cultural competency, and what I do with peer support and CPRS and peer recovery, there's more people that have reached out to me and said, hey, someone told me I should reach out to you. Hey, I heard this, I heard that. I had a guy reach out to me yesterday. I said, Brian, thank you. I'm 2 years sober, just finished my psychology degree, going for my master's. He goes, you're a lifesaver. And stuff like that will get me through the day. But I know that the cultural competency got me to where I am today. And I think that's very, very, very important. And it's overseen. All these people say, wow, they got great insurance. Let's say we have a first responder program. No, you got a first responder track that doesn't give them the attention that they deserve.
So first of all, I'd say, Brian, you're a cool dude, man. I'm glad to be listening to you. I could listen to you talk about life, man. You're just a great guy, seriously. And I hope that the listeners can resonate with some of that stuff. So you talk about trust. A million years ago, before my dad passed, I had started my own podcast. It was called Trust the Truth. And trust is based on only two things. It's based on the building blocks of character and competency. So if you're a person of perceived character and you're competent in what you talk about, then people, they grant you trust. So, what I like about that is when you are able to give, my dad always say, trust is gained in drops and lost in buckets. So you got to be careful with how you deal with people, because they won't forget you. The same way, Brian, that you knew those two old boys that were in that meeting, and you're like, I rest that. That is, people, we were on vacation. Someone goes, hey, you're Jeff Daukas, right? And my kid goes, of course someone would know you across the country. Why do they know you? I'm like, I don't know. And then you wonder, gosh, did I arrest this guy? I don't know. So the culturally competent stuff, Tami, we see so many people that want to be involved in some kind of systemized, programmatic development. If you do these things, then this is the result. If you give me $500, I'll prove it to you. Oh, it didn't work, so do it again. Give me another $500. And see, that doesn't address cultural competency. That is very rigid in its format and deployment. Brian, yeah, Boulder Crest and those guys, the Struggle Well program that's going through, it's ripped through our department right now. Men and women are seeing some growth from that, and it's changed some lives, and it's good. But as they'll tell you in that 5-day, it is the beginning, not the end. It's the beginning of a relational compact you make with other people. And everybody, you leave hugging and and you go through that, and it's great until you need something. Who do you call again? Well, the people that are trustworthy are the ones you call. Hopefully, they're the ones in the classes. But I'll give two shouts to these two different organizations. One, I serve as the Southwest Regional Rep to Mission First Alliance. And I don't know if you guys have heard of that, but Jeremy Wade is a retired Seattle police officer, started this about 2.5 years ago. He's based out of Chattanooga, Tennessee. Our motto is providing real hope to first responders, the 4.6 million around the country. We have reps in Canada, Australia, New Zealand. So that is a clearinghouse group, and you can find it at missionfirstalliance.com. I encourage the listeners, check it out, because there's a hub of resources that lead you to areas that will enhance your ability to become more resilient and to take another step forward, maybe in some kind of journey that you're on. So that's good. The second, I know you guys have heard of, is Reboot Recovery. Now, Scott McPherson, I had a great talk with him. I'm still on the fence. My wife and I are thinking about whether or not we want to be counselors on that. It's just, again, like, how much time do you spend, Chris, that you're taking away from the other stuff in, like, my life? My kid graduating, I got to lead people through that program. It is a good program, but it is very, very relational, very direct, and no punches pulled. So I would say, Tami, culturally competent, those are two groups that are changing with the culture, recognizing the culture, and have the built-in competency of, one, I've been there kind of thing. Those guys, Scott's a firefighter, Jeremy's a police officer. Brian, to your point, don't send a first responder to go to a counselor who doesn't know what first responders deal with. Like, my worst day can actually be someone's success story. But somebody's worst day, I call Tuesday. Like, first responders, you know, shootings, fight for your gun, deal with and Chris, internal affairs, deal with an investigation where you know you're going to rip a family apart. And you know what you call that? Wednesday, go back to work the next day. What do you have? More of that. And you're going to put us in a room with a first responder that says, tell me about, when I say apple, what's your first word? My first word is F you. All right? You know what? My first word is, you know, if I had a Win Mag round, it would probably hit that if it twists on this. You know, and they just don't get it. The throw punch Thursday. Like, I can resonate to all that stuff. But you put people in a room that have, as Tami said, gone through the back end of the journey and come out, and you put these groups together that'll help, like Mission First Alliance, Reboot Recovery. Kim is with HeartFit, and HeartFit's amazing. And definitely put these in the chat comments so that people can connect. And just, I would say to whoever is listening, if the best you can do is listen to a podcast right now and you're by yourself and you don't know if talking to real people is going to matter, then look at the talking heads. I mean, I got 25 and a half years in public safety. All of us together probably have over 100 years of life experience in public safety first responder realms. Just reach out. You can reach out. We still haven't figured out how to shame somebody over a phone or how to arrest people over a phone. So you might as well take a step so that when I go to work years ago, I walk in, I smell alcohol in a guy walking in. And I said, hey, man, you okay? He's like, yeah, I'm going through a divorce. They knew I would keep things in the vault. I had people talk about pill addictions, pornography, violence. They all come to me privately, and you keep it private. The guy, he's walking in, and he's like, yeah, I'm just hungover I drank till 6 a.m. We're working noon to 10. And I'm like, hey, man, if I go in and put my stripes on, I got to write you up. I said, why don't you get out of here, take a sick day on me? And then I followed up with them. Culturally aware and competent groups or people are ones that see other people in need and don't just friggin' cut the rope. You give them the rope and I tie it around my belt. I'm like, I'm your anchor then. And I'm going to go through my day. And if I tug that rope, you better be there. And this guy is better now. And he's working through his issues. And I just got him to a place where I need to be. Like, all of us want to get people out of love for other people to where they need to be. And you know what? I'm a big fan. I don't charge people money for that which God gave me for free. If I'm going to rise or fall, Lord's going to do it. As long as I got my sweet girl by my side and my Lord Savior Jesus Christ, he'll take care of me. He'll move me to where I need to be. And your listeners can resonate with that. So go ahead.
Well, I just want to interrupt. I wanted to talk about it a little bit earlier, but you call your wife your sweet girl. And I just want to commend that, because words have power and they have energy. And a lot of people in a relationship, oh, this is my better half, or this is my ball and chain. All of those things are doing a disservice to your marriage. So be aware of what you call your spouse, because it does. I tell everybody, Chris is my partner in all things, because we're running a business together. We're in a relationship together. We're raising kids together. We're holding space for each other. He is my partner in all things. So that's how I refer to him. Because, it just, because there's energy there. So I just wanted to say that's really cute that you do that. I want to honor everybody's time. There's so much more we could unpack. These episodes are really just skimming the surface of a huge topic. But for the audience, so yes, in the all the descriptions across all of the platforms, I will put everything, all of the resources in there. The other episodes, you guys can reach out. You can reach out to coaches. I always say you can reach out to all of our coaches and talk to somebody if you're not sure. And our guests are all open. I know you guys will send me your information. I know. You can reach out. And so if you're on the fence and you're like, I don't know, nothing, it's just a conversation. And again, it doesn't even have to be a Zoom call. It's a phone conversation. And with there's so many things. Just no excuses. Just reach out to somebody. I want to honor everybody's time and go around. And if somebody were to just tune in to this last little part of the podcast, what is your, 2-second mic drop takeaway advice that you would give for the audience?
What I usually end in is something that I was taught very early on is never underestimate the impact that you may have on someone else's life. I found that out by people that I was around, and now I get to see that every day. But as law enforcement officers and first responders, we live that every day, and we never see that, or we never wanted to understand that, or it's very important. Okay, if I didn't have that. If I don't do what I do, there may be someone that won't come out. And I think it's extremely important just to touch base with someone, say, hey, let me run something by you. I'll always be there. My phone number, she'll get my phone number and she'll put my email out there. Just text. It's never too late to just have a conversation. That's all I ever wanted. All I wanted was someone to listen to me, and I found that person. And we're there. There are people there. You're not alone. You are absolutely not alone, because we cannot do this alone.
Thank you, Jeff.
So two quick things. First was something I heard. I think it would have been from Kung Fu Panda, the wisdom of Kung Fu Panda, that says, Shifu says, when's the best time to plant a tree? 20 years ago or today. So start with that. And then the second thing I would say, I want to draw a word picture for you guys. If you're in a boat in the middle of a lake and it's foggy and you literally can't see, barely to the end of the boat, and you throw your rope in an anchor and you hit something, what your anchor is becomes infinitely important, because when the storm pulls and you start pulling, you're not pulling the anchor to you, you're pulling your boat to that anchor. We think we have all the ability in the world to go ahead and do things on our own, but it's what we anchor ourselves to that is going to be our foundation. And if you anchor yourself to alcohol, if you're listening and you have a problem with alcohol, I get it. You're going to have to find more alcohol out of Arizona. I drank it all. If you have a problem with substance abuse, I smoked a ton of weed. You have to smoke my body when I die. And so you look at these things, and whatever you anchor yourself to, you will pull yourself towards. And the question is, do you have enough moxie? Because no one else is looking. Can you cut the anchor and start over? Because when you look down your boat, you have all these anchors that are willing to be thrown out. And my anchor is Jesus Christ. Like I said, if you ever want to hear more about that, Tami, those guys they'll get my information, but you can certainly get a hold of me. We can talk more about the practicality of being a cop and being a Christian and being somebody that your family looks up to. And later on in life, my kid goes, that's the dad I'm proud of.
I'm going to steal more time. I'm sorry. We're going to go over. You can charge me overtime.
Okay.
The reason why I'm here today, and I don't know if Jeff knows or not, at the Wounded Blue Summit, Tami, you both gave a presentation. And every cop sitting there, blah, blah, blah. Too funny, right? I thought it was funny because I took a picture, because we always joke about that with a group I'm in. And I'm playing on my phone, and Chris mentions Eric Schuhandler. Because you guys, he never mentioned in the beginning the department he was from.
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, did he fucking just say Eric Shoehandler? And the people sitting next to me are like, you all right? I'm like, did he just say Eric Shoehandler? And they're like, what? I go, and they're like, are you okay? I go, no, I'm not. They go, why? I go, he just mentioned one of my best friends who was shot and killed in Gilbert, Arizona.
Mm-hmm.
I couldn't wait to talk to them afterwards. And I came up and I said, you really fucked me up there with your presentation. And he's like, what? I'm like, you mentioned Eric Shoehandler. I said I worked with Eric Shoehandler in Manasquan Police Department before he moved to Arizona. And he's like, holy cow. And he's like, can we talk? Because everybody was pulling at him and doing everything. And there's a reason for everything. And this is where my higher power, where my faith comes in. There's a reason why I was there that day. There's a reason why I listened. There was a reason why we got connected. And not that I don't think about him every day, which I do. It just made it a little more personal. And then to find out that Stephanie's on staff with you guys, and she's the one who was our tour guide when I came out there for the funeral. And I don't think those things. I don't take any of that lightly, and I want to turn that into like what we're talking about today. This is how things happen. Things happen for a reason. There are no coincidences in the things we do. This is how lives are changed, not just for the people getting help, but for Jeff and myself. I can't tell you, I can't explain to you what this does for us. And I don't think I'll ever be able to do that, but I thank you for having us on today.
Say, Brian, that you coming up to me at the end of that speech that I gave at the conference, that was so meaningful to me because that was confirmation that Tami and I are doing the right thing here. Because of all places in Las Vegas, you were a cop in New Jersey. Eric was a cop in New Jersey before he came to Arizona. And here we are meeting. We didn't even know each other prior to that, right? But that reminds me of we have to swallow our egos and we have to share our experiences with everybody, right? Because that was the biggest thing for me in the beginning, teaching and talking about my experience. I want everybody to think I'm the coolest cop that ever lived, right? I did the coolest things that, I didn't want to talk about the stuff that I went through, but because I do that, that allows, like you and Jeff, you're talking about your experience. All those cops that are listening are like, holy shit, I'm going through exactly what they're going through, right? Because they need to hear that. They need to hear that we're not alone. So, to you, Brian, that moment was huge for Tami and I, because the day before we were not having a great day. When it comes to giving this presentation and getting the message out, we weren't having a great day. And then you confirmed everything. No, we are exactly where we need to be. And your connection with Eric, because I responded out there that night that he was killed, and I saw everything, the aftermath, and dealing with all that. And it was at that scene, I was walking the scene and I was joking with other patrol officers out there. And then I realized, why am I laughing? My friend was just killed. And here I am laughing. Why? Because if we don't laugh, we cry. And if we cry, guess what? We can't go on with an investigation. This is why we do some of the weird things that we do, right? We laugh at moments like that. And as a cop, you guys understand that. You guys understand that 100%. And that's where the cultural competence, cultural experience comes into play when we share our stories with other people. Because that person who's never walked in our shoes isn't going to understand that. You did what? You laughed at the scene of where your friend was killed. They're not going to understand that, but you guys do. You guys know exactly what I'm talking about. So that's the importance of sharing and of finding those culturally competent, culturally experienced people that we can help each other out. So Brian, I want to thank you. And yes, we told Stephanie about you, and she was like, "Oh, I love Brian. Yeah, I remember." She was like all about it, right? Matter of fact, right before I got on this call, I was on a phone call with Stephanie. So yeah, it's just thank you, and thank you for sharing that, because you didn't have to. You didn't have to come up to us at that conference and say anything, but the fact that you did, that meant everything. That meant everything to us. And I don't think you really, really understand how much it meant. It meant a lot to us. So thank you.
Thank you.
Well, and we also don't believe in coincidences. This is where my metaphysical degree comes in, because I am all about synchronicities and divine. fully believe that everything that we're doing with law enforcement coaching is divinely driven, and we get those spirit confirmations. And you know, it was a 4-day conference, and we were in the worst time slot. We had the last presentation, and like, so, and it's funny because we had also kind of on the flight over being like, you know what, we did a whole bunch of conferences this summer, and a lot of it was on our own dime. And I'm like, you know what, we're done. This is our last one, and I'm going to call it. I don't think we're going to do conferences. And then all of that happened too, where it's like, oh, there's a reason that we're here. So yes, very, very special, and we're all connected. My last little, Chris, did you have a last little takeaway, or that was pretty
That
good?
was it. It's
Okay.
sharing.
Yeah.
Share and talk about your
Tell
experience.
your story. Whatever you're going through, your pain is part of your purpose. So just like these guys, when they were in it, they didn't think that they're going to be helping other people through it. They were just in their shit. Right now, wherever you're at, if you're in your shit, it can be temporary, and you can get out of it. And if you are someone who, this is for the men, I'm gonna, no offense to the women, but for the men, this one really resonates. If you're a male that's listening to this, and you know that something needs to change, but you're not quite sure what to do or take a step. If you have kids, this is really, really true from a psychology standpoint. If you have a son, your son's going to grow up to be just like you, for better or for worse. And your daughter is going to grow up to date someone like you, for better or for worse. So which version of you do you want your kids to date or to be? And like you said, planting a tree 20 years ago or planting the tree today, you can change today. It's not too late to show them. And even more so, it becomes like the hero's journey, where you're like, hey, and my friend that I was mentioning before, who was like, oh, I can just choose to be happy. I mean, he was a full on, and I can say this, he was a raging asshole, and he screwed up his relationship with his kids for their entire life. They're all adults now, but it's not too late. He is now in a point where he's actually healing his relationship with all of his kids. So something is better than nothing. It's not too late. Again, we're going to put all of the resources and contacts into the description on this, and reach out, look around in your local area. Don't be too proud. You don't got it on your own. And it's no longer a career suicide thing. There are so many departments that are starting to get it. And because of recruitment and retention issues, to the departments that are listening to, invest in your people and get them the support, whether you keep them or not. Maybe they really did screw up and they're out of their career. That doesn't mean that you drop them and just kick them to the side. Get them the support and help so that they can go on to be functional members of society, and not add to the problem of crime and all of the other shit. I'm going to go on a whole nother it's another podcast for another time. But with that, thank you guys all seriously for being here, and to the audience listening, thank you. And until next week.